Well, good morning and welcome once again to our NCG Studios, Texas. I'm your host, Daryl Fulow, and this is my wonderful son, Stephen.
Good morning.
Good to have you with me this morning, as always.
Good to be here.
And just in case, if we experience any technical difficulties, it's thundering outside, so I don't think we'll have any problems, but just in case. But I have something definitely on my mind this morning I'd like for us to talk about. And where do I start? Well, there's a couple of things, and I guess I'll just kind of run them together and see where they go. One is, we at NCG, or New Covenant Group, we try to discourage church. Here in our studio, as far as, being church, church itself. A lot of people may look at that, hear us say these things and say, well, how can you be that way? Church is so important. Maybe it seems that way to a lot of people. Obviously it does. As a matter of fact, I've heard things for years how that, more and more people are not going to church. Churches are getting smaller. Now there's a new trend today, I think, that's kind of changing the numbers there. They're trying to make church more fun, more appealing. But to me, that indicates one of the problems within church. It's always seems to have some sort of props to keep it going. And it could be that if maybe we'd quit propping it up, it would go ahead and go, and that would be a good thing. Hopefully over time, I know it's going to take a lot of time, but we can answer all the questions as to why we think this way. And my first thought is because we need to change our thinking. And here lately, there's been an amazing thing that I've noticed within myself, and that is I will catch myself having a certain thought, and as I have this thought, I realize how much my thinking has changed. Do you ever have that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Ways that you used to think about things, there's so many things coming your way that's bringing about change. And I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and define it as growth, as a maturing process. And I find myself looking at things in a completely different way. And more importantly, I find myself looking at people in a completely different way. And I guess the way I would have defined church in the past, and I'm going to try to bring this together because I know our time is limited. But I would look at it as, trying to collect a group of people for a specific purpose. And you always have to go back to the foundation of things with church, and that is that, Jesus died for our sins, and without that, not only that, supposedly I'm going to say supposedly, he died for our sins so that if we would believe that, accept that, or so forth, then we could be right with God and experience wonderful things instead of experiencing some eternal damnation. And that's the premise. That's the basis. And with most church, you can't get away from that. And where my mind has changed concerning that is that Jesus needed to do no such thing. We were already okay as far as God's concerned. As a matter of fact, even in our New Testament, when you define the word love, and we've gone over this many times, but you find one of its characteristics as keeping no records of wrongs. And so if God is love, then that would have to mean that he keeps no record of wrongs. Never has. He doesn't change. He's always been love. He hasn't mutated from one thing to another. And so what that does for me, excuse me, instead of needing to gather a group of people to believe a certain thing so that they can be saved from God himself, if you will, I now look at humanity as something that God loves very dearly, and it's all of humanity. So if you want to look at what church should be looking at, it should be looking at the whole ball of wax, all of humanity, and saying, this is wonderful. We're just all one group of people loved by God and who have the ability and can mature and grow, which is certainly going to take a lot of that on our part, to love one another, to actually care about every other fellow human being on the planet rather than just the ones that fit into our group or that have done a certain criteria. And actually, I didn't even intend to get into all that, so we probably won't get very far with where I want to go this morning. But let me try to shift it to another direction and get you involved in the conversation here. The question that I think that needs to be answered, and on a continual basis, not just one quick answer, but if church people get together, for example, like we have this morning on a Sunday morning, and do certain things, have a certain agenda, then if we're no longer church, then why should we still get together on a Sunday morning or any given time? What's the point? What's our purpose? And personally, I think there's plenty of good answers to that question. I think I've already discussed some of it. We need a lot of mind change.
Yeah, I agree. We need, I guess the Sunday morning thing is just out of convenience. Most people don't work on Sunday morning. It's easier for us to gather, but to me, we can't do without gatherings. This is how we build a sense of community: is to come together and focus on a good direction to go and be more inclusive. Not, the thing that I like that we've gotten away from as far as church goes is not having. I mean, we have teachers, of course. We have people that speak, but we encourage participation. It's not just about one man standing up, delivering a message and saying, okay, now follow this, follow me. It's more like, I have something to say, but if you have a question about it or if you have a different opinion, let's hear it.
Right.
And
exactly.
let's work together on this.
And with that platform, it has amazed me, I'll say that, to watch such diverse people get together and have civil, rational, respectful conversations. Wednesday night is one of the most enjoyable times I've ever had with a group of people. People that there was one or two of them I just met Wednesday night. Others, I've only met them. I've seen their image on the screen of the computer, heard their voices. But we've had better discussions than I've had with a lot of people I've known for years. We just took the topic love, and everyone, you got atheists, you got deists, you got theists, and anymore it doesn't even really matter to me. I don't need to know what the person I'm talking to believes about God or, other things. We just need to have a conversation. We need to be able to discuss things human to human in a loving way. And that's what I experienced, and it's wonderful. There's nothing like it. I mean, I've been around a while, but I'm experiencing things now that I've never experienced, and I'm talking about wonderful things. But let me bring up a point, and we'll finish our discussion. What do we got, about 2 minutes left? Time seems to fly.
No, we've still got about 10, 15 minutes.
Wow, okay, good deal. I want to bring up something that I know you'll remember this. We've been involved in the teachings of Dr. Jones for quite some time, and sometimes I'll just think of something that was brought up in the past, and actually it has new meaning. And I want to get your thoughts on this. Years ago, it actually wasn't something that he originally stated. It was something that a missionary to Mexico stated. And he just kind of latched onto it and threw it out there and kind of gave it a different, presented it a little bit different way. Let's see if you remember this, okay? This missionary to Mexico, he had a large group of Mexicans he was speaking to. And he asked the question, he said, how many of you are Mexicans? And they all raised their hand. And I may not even be saying this right. I don't know. I just remembered it being said. Now I don't know if I can say it the way it was stated. And you can help me out here if you remember what I'm talking about.
Not yet.
The next question was, no, I know what it was. They were all Mexicans. So he said, how many of you are trying to be Mexicans? Maybe that's the way it went. And none of them raised their hand because they were already Mexicans. They didn't have to try to be. So he said, how many of you are trying to be Christians? And I think he may have asked that question first. I know I'm not doing this exactly right, because if he said, how many of you are trying to be Christians, and they all raised their hands, I think that's the way it went. And then, sorry I don't have my story straight here, but then he asked the question, how many of you are trying to be Mexicans? And none of them raised their hands. So they weren't trying to be Mexicans because that's what they were, but they were trying to be Christians because apparently they thought they weren't. And when I think back on that now, it has a different meaning to me, because I think about the difference. And this is one of the things that I really want us to address as time goes by. You know, we're together here this morning, and I think everyone's here because they want to be. There's no coercion. There's no promise of you'll get this or that. There's no threat that if you don't come, then bad things or whatever. But we're here because we want to be, because we enjoy being together and we enjoy what we're gaining. It's changing us, and I think all of us agree that we could use a little change, if not maybe a lot. But when you consider this question, let's compare who we are and what we're becoming to what we've been and our involvement in church. What is being promoted by church? And I think for the most part, when people go to church, they fit that category. They're trying to be Christian. And I think I'm qualified to state this because I lived there for a number of years. And I was constantly trying to, get to a certain point, meet the standard so that I would be acceptable, so that I would please God and so forth. And, the frustration of that actually, I think, mostly is because of what church teaches. You've got such a spectrum of God. You've got, on the one hand, he seems to be the cruelest being there ever was. How could someone who is love be involved in such hideous things? And I'm talking about what the Bible teaches. And we talk about this a lot here. But as opposed to that, I'm going to, this is a personal thing with me, but I think it'd be across the board with most of us. We're not trying to be anything in particular. Are you still trying to be something or other?
I'm just being me.
Yeah. And you're in the process of change, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And
that's one of the things I feel like I've been restricted from, is just being myself.
Yeah.
It's always been about trying to be who other people think I should be, and the pressure I felt who I needed to be. But now I'm just trying to figure out who I am.
It's a good thing, though, isn't it? Do you find yourself, well, let me just ask you some questions, interview you a little bit. Do you see yourself maybe a little better, in a better light than what you used to?
Oh, definitely. I find myself relating to people more now. And pretty much in every area, because before it's like when I got around certain people, I felt like there were certain things that I needed to talk about. I felt pressure to bring up God, or feel like there needed to be an opportunity, and if there wasn't one, I needed to force one in there somehow. And now I really don't even care if we ever discuss the topic.
Yeah.
It's just about relating to people, and if things get brought up and we're able to talk about, the especially where I stand now, because it seems to be so interesting to a lot of people,
Yeah.
then it's a good thing. But if not, like I said, we just have a good time.
Well, along the same lines, and I don't mind admitting this, one of the things that we another way we refer to ourselves, especially on the Wednesday night hangouts, is the cult of honesty. The cult of honesty is one and the same as the New Covenant group. I love the term myself. It seems like a conflict of interests or mutual contradiction. I'm not sure what to call it, but when you say something is a cult, usually, people immediately say, well, that's not good. But a cult of honesty, that's almost like a breath of fresh air. It's like, a group of people getting together and being extremely honest. That's a new twist. But I think the more honest we are about things, and especially about ourselves, the more we bring to the table, the more we can, hear others that maybe have experienced the same thing. Or maybe we can even find out that when we're honest, we're not as bad as what we thought we used to be, that some of the things that we struggled with and we bring it out and we say, well, that's a reasonable thing there, And I've talked on long enough that I've forgotten exactly what I was going to relate.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. But, to me, that is one of the good things. There's just so many good things. And matter of fact, I remember what I was going to say in the past. I did. I felt like you did. I felt obligated that, if people are going to hell or if people don't know what I know, I need to get it to them so that they can get right and that they can not go to hell but go to heaven, or they can be blessed or whatever. And I'm not an outward person like a lot of people are. I'm not the kind of guy that just, I'm going to blurt this out and I don't care who gets upset or, what the results are. But more and more, I've come to the place, like you were saying, not that I feel obligated to say something, but that when the opportunity seems right, or when it, just like you said, comes up in conversation, I'm not the slightest bit intimidated. I can remember, and like I say, it's time to be honest, when as a group here, we discovered that, or first heard, I should say, that there was no hell. And some of the guys that work for me in my business, they said, this ain't gonna work. People find out that we're teaching that sort of thing, we're going to lose business. Do you remember that? And, we were serious. We thought, oh gosh, we're not going to have jobs. And the funny thing is, my business is more than it's ever been. And, I think there's something to be said for that. I don't know how many people that we actually work for that know I don't believe there's a hell, but I really don't care. It doesn't make any difference to me because I live as if there's not one, Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone that I do business with or that I relate to needs to try to get right or, do a certain thing. They just need to be loved. They just need someone to show, I'm not just here to paint your house. I'm here because I care about you. And, however this ends up, I want it to be fair to you, fair to me. Just honest, relationship. And 99 times out of 100, I would say, when we finish a job, we have some new friends. And we know a little something about them. We can relate to one another. And, I keep thinking if the world would operate like this, if we all had the kind of attitude that says, I care more about you than I do what I can benefit from you, or, things along that line, I think things would change. But back to the thing of trying to be a Christian, you're trying to be nice and be these good things, but at the same time, you've got this threat over your head, and you feel this obligation that you've got to insist that people change and become like you. And I know there's much more to it than this, but I just wanted to tip the iceberg this morning because there's so many things that need to be brought up and addressed, and we're not trying to be mean or put anyone down. We're trying to get people to come together and address issues that will make things better for us all. We out of time?
I got 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Well, say something then. I've done most of the talking.
Well, earlier I was saying I really don't care if things are brought up when I'm around friends or family or whatever, but in all honesty, I mean, I know that this is of huge importance at what we're doing here. I don't force it anymore, but I do think everybody needs to know, or at least hear about what we're talking about, whether they agree with it or not. I think it's extremely beneficial because what most people are in is a trap, and it prevents them from being themselves. They're forced to fit into this mold, and if I can protect anybody from that, it's 100% worth it. I'm raising 3 children, and it's awesome to see their individual personalities, to see who they are when they're just being themselves. I would never want to restrict that, and so many people are restricted just from being who they are, and they need to hear this. So I don't want to make it sound like this is not important, because it's extremely important. It's just not, I don't have the same agenda as I did before of trying to force people into a mold. It's more like breaking the mold and saying, just be you.
Yeah. So. Well, I can certainly relate. I could say I've raised my children, but I don't think that responsibility really ever ends. It's not like raising once they get to a certain age, such as yourself. I'm no longer raising you, but his wife said I am.
That's true.
Yeah, well, we need that. That's the wonderful thing about these kind of relationships. We raise one another. and that's a good word to use, because the goal is to raise one another to a higher level, And I think we do that. I think that's what we have. We have an opportunity to rise above, And
you were saying earlier how you're not just outspoken and just blurt things out to people, but I'm finding more and more that sometimes that's the way it needs to be. We have to put pressure on people for them to actually consider what we're saying. Well, being too timid, people, I don't think most people respect that. There has to be some sort of pressure on people to open their minds, to listen just a little bit and question what it is that they think, the things that they do.
You know what I think it really is? I think it's just giving people credit.
Think fast.
Are we past?
We're out of time.
We got to go. But just giving people credit for what they have up here, Go ahead and say it and give them something to think about. And, we may be surprised. I think we will again and again. But we're going to call it quits, because we've got lots of other programs and we need to keep things on a timely schedule. So we're going to say goodbye here from Texas. We're glad to have been with you and look forward to next time. Thank you. And thank you.